To learn about the off-grid lifestyle and to be inspired to live your dreams, click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Hit the bell notification. I've been on this property for almost 6 months now. I think it's almost 6. I think we're coming up on 6. And I've never been happier in my life. Every day that I'm here is another day that I don't want to leave it. The most dreadful thing I have to do is get in that thing. Because once I know I have to get in that thing, I know that my happiness level is going to drop. I try to go along to get along. And a while back I was telling you I was at Walmart. And this is before they required you to wear a mask. But they were asking you to social distance. So they had aisles all marked up. So you go down one aisle and then you come back up the other aisle. I mean, whether you agree with what I was doing or not really doesn't make any difference. In my mind, it was important that I followed the rules because I didn't want to get kicked out of Walmart. There are times there are traffic jams in the aisle because somebody is looking at product, and in order to keep 6 foot, you have to stop. So patience. I have no problem with patience. Well, one guy said, "Come on, let's go." A customer, and I'm like, "Oh, no, 6 feet, 6 feet." And he said, "Are you stupid or something? Let's go." And the more I think about this, the more I wonder, has society always been this way, or is it recently? I watch old movies and TV shows like Twilight Zone, and even though they were all messed up, I mean, they were in the Twilight Zone, no less. Terrible place to be. The shows were polite. Ma'am and sir, and thank you. But today, you don't see that in TV shows. As a matter of fact, the more TV shows you watch, the more you see cussing and cussing and cussing and disrespect and sarcasm. I think the people are just getting meaner all the time. And they really don't care who they're going to upset. If you decide to challenge them, then you're the bad guy. And actually, there's been quite a few studies that show that the internet is causing more people to be narcissistic. Narcissistic is when you're in love with yourself. I mean, a simple definition, and I'm not a scientist or anything, but I got to give a definition, so in case somebody doesn't know what it is. You're in love with yourself, and everybody else is beneath you. And so the more people get online, it's actually causing more people to be narcissistic. But I've always tried to make a habit out of saying yes, ma'am, and no, sir. Or yes, sir, and no, ma'am. Whatever the case is. If somebody asks me a question at the gas station, and I don't know their name, yes ma'am or no ma'am. I've always been that way. Thank you. And instead of being on the road with road rage, you know what really diffuses a lot of things? Some guy honks at you. Whether you're right or wrong, you say, "Oh," you know, you wave and you say you're sorry. And I've noticed that really diffuses things. So I'm trying to understand all this. As now I'm on social media. You know, I didn't have social media until I started a YouTube channel. And so it was all baffling to me. It was all new, all these trolls. Everybody's a troll, everybody's a hater. And the more I think about it, the more I think, no, they're not all trolls. A troll is someone who's intentionally going out to just kind of tear a channel down. And a hater is basically the same thing. Haters usually last longer than trolls. Trolls come in, they do something silly, and then they go away. Once you ignore them, don't feed the trolls, they say. But a hater, doesn't matter if you feed them or not, they keep coming back at you. Whatever they can do. And the haters, I've noticed, tend to misspell a lot of words, don't use punctuation. A lot of them seem like they may be intoxicated. I think they really are angry with life. And so their anger is transposed onto you. Out on the roads, out at Walmart, they're just unhappy people, and they're trying to find a way to be happy. And the only way they can be happy is to put you down to make themselves bigger. Narcissism. But I noticed years ago that if you watch a debate on TV, on your news, they always bring in a panel of people, and they're always opposing panels. Here's the question of the day: is your president a great guy or a bad guy? Whatever, and they'll debate back and forth. Well, you'll immediately see that there's one side or another that's always going to lose the argument. And when they feel like they've ran out of answers, they always turn to name calling. It's always a name. Well, you're stupid. Oh, you don't have the brains to understand anything. You're dumb. I've mentioned many times that in my comment section on my YouTube channel, it's just trash. I know I can turn off comments, but if I turn off comments, then it hurts my channel. I sometimes wish YouTube would just eliminate comments altogether, because that's the only thing it brings in. 90% of my comments, I should say, I have 10% of the comments are just nicest people in the world. They watch because they want to learn something, or they're inspired by my ability to live off grid and they want to learn how to live off grid. But the 90% of it is just trash talk, anything to be hateful. So I need to tell you a little story. A few days ago, I made a video where I was talking about sharpening a chainsaw. I can sharpen a chainsaw and it's okay. Not great. Maybe as good as it was new, but man, you watch some of these YouTube videos and they just take that chainsaw and it cuts like butter. It's just amazing to watch some of these chainsaw channels. They're getting chunks of wood out of that sawdust, big as your thumbnail. I mean, and that's what you want to see. You don't want to see a little powder. And it's like, man, I really want to learn how to do this. So I've spent endless hours trying to learn how to do this. And anytime I learn something new, I try it out and I test the saw and see if it cuts any faster, better, or worse than before. Well, I watched two different videos and they were both a half-hour long. Now, there was one guy, he was hooting and hollering, woo, here's how you sharpen a chainsaw, let's go. And he didn't seem very serious. He was more entertaining. And so I didn't take him very seriously. But it was a half-hour video and I watched the whole thing. But I just didn't have a lot of trust in it, so I didn't want to take the time to actually follow his instructions. Well, then there is another channel that I watch. I think he's been in the tree trimming business, tree cutting business for 15 years. And he was explaining how to sharpen a chainsaw. Went in a lot of detail, different methods. And he talked about using a chainsaw file guide. He says, all my buddies tell me to throw that thing away, but I insist on using it, and he showed why. Now, what was really interesting about his video was he tested different stages of sharpness. So he bought a brand new chainsaw blade. He cut a log, and it took him like 26 seconds to cut the log. And then he dulled the blade. He ran it up against a rock, dulled it. He put it back on that log, and it would not even scratch the bark barely. It was dull. So he went in and he showed a method that most everybody uses. And he went back out and cut the same log. Took him, I think, 22 seconds this time. So it was sharper than new. But he said, I want to show you something else. And he showed a third way of sharpening. And he came back out, cut the same log, took him 18 seconds. So after watching two videos and seeing this guy had proved himself, I did the same thing. And I showed you on the video what to do. Sure enough, when I tested that chainsaw out, man, now I didn't time it or anything, but I could feel a difference. I mean, you could see it right, just go right through it. It didn't strain the engine. It was beautiful. So some guy watched this video and he seems pretty sincere, a little sarcastic, but sincere. He says, now, before I read this to you, I want you to understand there is no punctuation in his comment, not a word. This is important because when I get to the end of this, you're going to understand why it is important he has no punctuation. But he says, nah, I'll help you out with sharpening your saw. Logged for years. Use a guide a few times, learn the angle, and then take a file out of the guide and throw that away. Put the file in a cordless drill and get your chain sharp every time. Whenever tooth is sharp, whenever spelt wrong, that's why I always struggled over it. Saw cuts STR and the number 8. I don't know what that is. Straight? Maybe that's straight. I guess that's straight. Forget what people say. A lot faster and you still get a good life from the chain. Stop overthinking and use the drill. I run it up and down the tooth several times and make 2 passes to make sure every tooth is sharp. And have been doing this for years. Again, no punctuation. If you can sharpen by hand, you can do it with a drill easy, much faster. Okay, now, I am not really concerned about how fast I sharpen a chain. I'm concerned about how sharp the chain is. Our 16th president said one time, I can't use his name because every time I do, I get demonetized. If he has to cut down a tree, he'd rather spend 4 hours sharpening the axe and 2 hours cutting down the tree. I don't know if the time is right. So that makes sense. You do a lot of preparation to make sure that the thing's sharp. I'm not worried about how fast I'm going to sharpen a chain. So I just replied, I've tried to be polite, not looking for quick sharpening. looking for better, smooth, and fast cut, which is what I got. So he replies back, little house off grid, I just gave you the answer to what you're looking for. And he didn't, because I wasn't looking for fast. I was looking for sharp. So I don't understand what it is that I was looking for, that he saw that I was looking for. He says, for more proficient form, and you're too dumb to know it. Why is he calling me dumb? This is where the conversation always turns. It always turns to name calling. He lost the argument. He lost the argument. So he went to dumb. So here's where I got a little aggravated. So I replied, let me understand. You tell me to stop listening to people, which he did in his first comment. He said, don't listen to people in your first comment. So I take your advice and decide not to listen to you. Then you call me dumb in your second comment because I took your advice by not listening to you. Man, you have to be the worst teacher ever. He knew he lost the argument. He knew that he couldn't compete. See, I don't know this guy. This guy's a stranger to me. But he wants me to stop listening to what I feel like is good advice from professionals who have a YouTube channel who said, okay, I've been in business. They have showed me their credentials through the YouTube channel. I can watch many of his videos and see that he cuts down trees perfectly every time. I can see his chainsaw cuts very fast. Now this guy wants me to take a drill and put a file in it. Now I'm sure that the manufacturer, if I was to call the manufacturer of the file and say, can I put your file in a drill to sharpen my blade, that they would say, no, you're going to tear up your file. You're going to break something. It's going to be dangerous. So then if I were to call the chainsaw manufacturer and say, hey, if I were to do this with a drill, would you still guarantee your chain? They're going to say no. You're going to heat it up. You're going to cause problems. You're going to wear it out. So the narcissists who get on YouTube and Facebook and tell everybody they're dumb, it's the reason they're doing it is because they realize that they're not smart as you. But their psychological makeup, the narcissism in them, requires them to win. So in order to win, they have to name call. This is the way our society is now. And the only way I know how to be happy in this society is just stay away from it as much as I possibly can. So I hope I can encourage you to find happiness within yourself. Get away from society because they're just here to tear you down anymore. Thanks for watching.